In this video, we are going to talk about car ownership and then the financial considerations to think about before purchasing a car and the difference between purchasing and leasing a car. So, when we go to a dealership to buy a car or we go to the bank and we take out a loan for a car, they calculate it like they would for an ordinary annuity. So, you're going to see that formula in this section. I'm going to show you how to do this with our solver that's online. And this is the same TVM solver that we've used in multiple sections. I've got a link to it in Blackboard, and you just go to jufinance.com/TVM if you want to type it into the address bar. But this is what it's doing behind the scenes, is it's calculating that present value for an ordinary annuity. And I is going to be the annual interest rate as a decimal divided by the number of compounding periods per year. So let's look at an example. An interior designer purchases a car for a total cost, including tax and license, of $42,523.98. And they're going to take out a 5-year loan at an annual interest rate of 2.79% compounded monthly. We want to know the monthly payment if they make a 20% down payment on this car. So let's highlight all of our important information here. So the total cost, and that's including tax. And anytime you buy a car, you do have to pay taxes on it. And then you have to pay for the license plate. Even if you have a current license plate and you're trading in your old car, there's still a fee attached to that as well. They're taking out a 5-year loan. Here's our interest rate. It's compounded monthly. And they're making a 20% down payment. So that means they're not taking out the full 42,000. They're taking out less than that. So let's figure out the amount of down payment. I'm going to abbreviate down payment there. So we want to know what is 20% of the 42,523. So 42,523.98. And we're going to multiply that by 20%. That's how much they're making as a down payment. I'm going to do that off screen in my calculator. They are making a down payment of $8,504, and I got 0.796, so we're going to round that up to 80 cents. So the amount borrowed is going to be the $42,523.98 minus the down payment. So they're borrowing $34,019.18. So I'm going to pull up my time value money solver. So here it is. And we're going to type in everything that we know. So they are going to borrow $34,019.18. So that's our present value. Interest rate is 2.9%. Sorry, 2.79%. And we're writing that as the percentage. So be careful. And then compounded monthly. So I'm going to choose monthly here. And periods. They are borrowing this for 5 years. And they're going to make a monthly payment. So 5 years times 12 would be 60 payments. So 60 payment periods. and we want to know what is that monthly payment going to be. So I'm going to click on PMT. And our monthly payment is going to be $608.11. So let's figure out the total paid back. Because it's going to be more than this because the bank's going to include interest on top of that. That's how they're going to make some money. So we're going to take that payment and we're going to multiply by how many payments we have. We're doing 5 years every month. So 5 times 12 is 60. So 608.11 times 60 payments would be $36,486.60. So that's the total that's paid back. So if we want to find the amount of interest paid, then we're going to take that total that's paid back and subtract how much was borrowed. You can see that there was 2467 and some change paid back. So there's our total interest. So we took this question a little bit further. It just asked for monthly payment, but you can see how much interest is paid in that 5 years for that particular problem. So when we're looking at purchasing a car, we need to think about how much of a payment can I actually afford? Could I afford a $400 payment or a $500 payment or a $300 payment? So let's look at another example. From a budget that William has created, William can afford a monthly payment of $350 for a car. So he wants it to be $350 as his max. If William can attain a 5-year loan at an annual interest rate of 4.3%, what's the maximum that he can finance? So we know a monthly payment, we know an interest rate, and we know that this is going to be a 5-year loan. So let's figure out what his monthly payment's going to be. Let's figure out how much car can he afford. So we're going to go back to our TVM solver, and I'm going to delete everything that's in here. So we're looking for present value here. So when we type in everything we know, we will hit that present value button. So our payment's going to be $350, and the payment's going to be monthly. 5 years, every month would be 60 payments total. Interest rate's 4.3%. And my present value would be $18,865.67. So with this information, this is how much car he can afford. If he bought something that was less, then his monthly payment would actually end up being less. But that's the maximum. So when we own a car, now we have to think about all of the things that are necessary to operate a car. So there's a lot of different options. We have gas cars, we have electric cars, we have hybrid cars. So miles per gallon is what I think a lot of cars use still nowadays, but that's starting to change. So that might not necessarily be the best way to compare two cars, especially if you're looking at um, a hybrid or an electric versus a gas car. So let's look at a few examples. The EPA rating of a car is 24 miles per gallon. Find the gallons per 100 miles that's used by this car. So if we're looking at comparing cars that are using gas, then we could find the gallons per 100 miles or compare the miles per gallon for two different cars. We could even do this if we have like a hybrid car and we want to compare to a gas car. So how would we go about solving this type of problem? So we could set up a proportion. So we have 24 miles, and that's per gallon. And we want to know how can we make that equal to, we're looking for the number of gallons. So I'll call it X gallons per 100 miles. So how many gallons would it take to go 100 miles is what this is trying to say. So we're going to cross multiply. So we've set up this proportion. So we're going to have 24 times X. And then if we cross multiply here, remember this is really 1 gallon. 1 times 100 is 100. And if we divide by 24, I got about 4.17. So this car has a rating of 4.17 gallons per 100 miles. So suppose we bought a new car. Let's talk about depreciation. Cars depreciate over time and they depreciate rather quickly. If you were to buy a brand new car, as soon as you drive it off the lot, it starts to depreciate, and it usually goes down somewhere between 9 and 11% as soon as you drive it off the lot. And by the end of the first year, it's going to depreciate around another 10%. We can find current values for cars by using something like Kelley Blue Book or Edmunds.com. So if you have a car, like right now, I have a 2018 Camry and it's got 120,000 miles on it. So I could look up the value for that car in Kelley Blue Book to figure out how much it would be worth now. And it would be worth much less than what it was when I bought it um, several years ago. There's other things we need to consider as well when we talk about cost of owning a car, like the fuel it's going to take, maintenance, repairs, license. We have to pay car insurance every month. You have to pay taxes on it every month and so on. So let's look at an example that's looking at all those different costs. We're going to look at the annual cost of owning a car. So a tennis coach purchased a new car for 32,500 and they financed 26,000 for 4 years at an annual interest rate of 3.75%. And then we know the monthly car payment is 584.15. Assume the car has an average fuel efficiency of 24 miles per gallon. They're telling us that the license and registration is 1.2% of the purchase price, sales tax is 6.75% of the purchase price, depreciation was 22% of the purchase price. Fuel cost for driving 14,000 miles, and it's telling us the average cost of gasoline is 256. So they're expecting to drive 14,000 miles in this particular year. And the year one interest payment, we have an insurance amount and we have a maintenance amount. So license and registration. Let's start back up here and we'll compute those prices off to the side. That's going to be 1.2% of the purchase price. So that purchase price was 32,500. So I'm going to take 32,500 and multiply it by 1.2%. Remember, I'm going to move that decimal 2 places to the left. So it's 0.012. So that's $390. Sales tax of the purchase price. Purchase price is 32,500. And notice for both of these, I'm using the purchase price. I'm not using how much was financed. The car was bought for 32,500. Multiply it by 0.0675. And I ended up with $2,193.75. And then depreciation is 22% of the purchase price. Purchase price was 32,500. Depreciation is 22%. I ended up with $7,150. They're looking at driving 14,000 miles a year, and right now the average cost in this example is $2.56. So how much how much are they gonna spend in gas every year? Well, let's multiply that 14,000 times price per gallon. Actually, we need to rethink that because it's not 1 gallon for every 14,000 miles. Let's go back up here. It says that the fuel efficiency is 24 miles per gallon, and they're gonna go 14,000 miles. So I'm gonna take that 14,000 miles, and I'm gonna divide by 24 miles per gallon, and that's gonna tell me how many gallons I need. So I got 583.333 repeating. So gallons needed. So fuel cost would be that times 256. So I got about 1493 and some change for that fuel cost. I'm going to circle that and go back and highlight these numbers so we don't lose them when we finish this problem. So now we got to figure out interest, and then we know the annual insurance and maintenance fees for this. So to figure out that interest, we just care about the interest for the first year because we're looking at the cost of owning that car for that first year. So we're going to use an amortization schedule. So, and I've got this linked in Blackboard also. So we know that that initial purchase amount was for 26,000. The loan term was for 4 years, and the interest rate was 3.75%. And we're making monthly payments. I'm going to hit calculate. So there's my monthly payment amount. Okay, we could get that monthly payment amount with that TVM solver also. But we're wanting interest, and that's what the amortization schedule is going to tell us. So year one, that interest was $870.19. So let's add up all those highlighted numbers. So 592, I'm doing backwards, plus 832, plus 870.19, plus 1493.33, plus 7150, plus 2193.75, plus 390. It's going to give us a grand total of $13,521.27. So that's the cost of owning and operating that car for that particular year. And that cost can vary. It's going to go down a little bit in year 2 because we won't pay as much interest on the loan. Depending on where you live, you could have a city tax that you would have to pay, so that could go up depending on your city tax information. So then the question becomes, should I buy or should I lease? So let's talk about leasing a car. So that is one option, is that you could lease a car. Usually what happens is you make some kind of down payment and then you'll lease it for a set term. It could be for 2 years, it could be for 1 year. There are restrictions with leasing, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The value of the car at the end of the lease is called its residual value, and it's based on a percentage of the manufacturer's suggested retail price. That's the MSRP price. And it's usually between 40 and 60% of the MSRP, depending on the type of lease. In addition to the residual value of the car, the monthly lease payment for a car takes into consideration net capitalized cost, the money factor, average monthly finance charges, and average monthly depreciation. So that net capitalized cost is going to be the negotiated price minus the down payment minus any kind of trade-in value. And the money factor is the annual interest rate divided by 2,400. So the average monthly finance charge is going to be the net capitalized cost plus the residual value. And that sum is going to be multiplied by the money factor, the number of months in the lease. The monthly lease payment is going to be given by F plus D. F is the average monthly finance cost or charge, and D is the average monthly depreciation. So let's look at an example that's going to tie all that together. The director of human resources for a company decides to lease a car for 30 months. Suppose the annual interest rate is 8.4%. The negotiated price is $29,500 and there is no trade-in, and the down payment is $5,000. We want to find the monthly lease payment. We're going to assume the residual value is 55% of the MSRP of $33,400. So let's compute that charge for this. So we need to find that net capitalized cost. That's the difference between the negotiated price and the down payment. And then we're going to take off the trade-in value. Let's trade it. So that negotiated price is $29,500. The down payment was $5,000. And there's no trade-in value, so 0 there. So if I subtract those, I'm going to get $24,500. So there's my net capitalized cost. I need to find the residual value. The residual value is going to be 55% of the MSRP of 33,400. So I need to find 33,400 times 0.55. And what that's saying is that that's how much that car is going to be worth at the end of the lease. At 18,370. So the monthly lease payment let's find the finance charge next. Will be the net capitalized cost plus residual times the money factor. So net capitalized cost was 24,500. The residual is 18,370. We're going to multiply that by that money factor. Money factor is the annual interest rate divided by 2,400. Interest rate is 8.4% divided by 2,400. About 150.045. Circle that. So this is the average monthly finance. So now we've got to figure out that depreciation amount, average monthly depreciation, and then we'll just add those together to figure out that monthly payment. And that depreciation is the net capitalized cost minus the residual divided by the number of months in the lease. So my net capitalized was 24,500. My residual was 18,370. And I'm dividing that by the 30 months. Got about 204.33. Payment is the finance charge plus the depreciation. So 150, I'm gonna round this to the nearest cent, 05, and this was 204.33. Would be 354.38. So that's my monthly payment. So how do I know when I would finance or lease versus when I should buy? There's advantages and disadvantages to both, and it's really just personal decision as to which one you should do. So let's look at some of the advantages of leasing. A lot of times when you lease, the down payment could be smaller. The leasing agreement ends. So if you're looking at changing cars every 2, 3, 4 years, you can turn right around and you can get a new one, which means your maintenance isn't going to be as high, theoretically. Some maintenances could even be included in that lease agreement. Disadvantages is that you're never going to own it, so you can't really make changes to it. Most lease agreements won't let you like upgrade the sound system, um, tinting windows, stuff like that. It just depends. And then there's usually mileage restrictions with leasing. Usually it's around 12,000, 10,000, 12,000 miles per year. And then after that, you get charged per additional mile that you're traveling. So a lot of it just depends on long-term goals. If you are not gonna really drive a whole lot, leasing may be a great option for you if you don't want to deal with maintenance and you like the idea of having a new car every few years. Leasing could be a great option. If you want to own a car, that way you can make changes to it, and then eventually you won't have any payments because it will be paid off. Then owning's a great way to do it. So lots of different options for car ownership.